Great to be here, Mary. Yeah, this was one of those things. It's like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to sit on the sidelines and retire? No, I don't think so. Yeah.
You've had quite a month. We actually today is the 1 month anniversary. It's hard to believe. I mean, because you announced
Right.
right early July, and
Yes.
is that right? July.
Yeah. It was actually it was right at the beginning of July, and then of course July the 4th, everything changed for us here in Texas with the flooding, and so I put the campaign on hold, which was fine. I didn't mind doing that because we are early in announcing. But for somebody going against an incumbent, you got to do a lot of groundwork, and this is a grassroots campaign. So yes, the flooding kicked in on July the 4th, changed everything for the past few weeks, but I'm back in the campaign mode now.
Well, tell us. I know that you've been at the front lines in the flood situation in West
Right,
Texas. Just and really, for me, it hits home because I have a lot of patients who either knew
right,
somebody who died, and one of my very good friends, her daughter was at camp, and her daughter actually was sick, and I gave her the green light to go to camp, and
right.
thankfully she was okay. But I know you have been just in the trenches this whole month,
Yes,
basically. And can you tell us sort of
right.
what's been going on?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, the 4th of July, I was going to be doing a campaign thing. I was going to be riding on a float that day, but I got a call about 6 in the morning and said there's something going on down in Hunt, Texas. And of course, we are a counter human trafficking team. What I did after I left the military, as well as a humanitarian aid and disaster relief unit. So we've been out in North Carolina and all that during those floodings. Well, here it was in our backyard. So literally made it down there in 2 hours and got on the ground. We were in the rescue phase. There are three main phases to these things: rescue, recovery, and then sustainment. We're crossing into sustainment phase now. But yeah, so for us, it's usually hit the ground first. It's the chaos. It's what we do. I was a former military guy, so we did a lot of chaos control in that and downrange in all the foreign countries we've been in the last 20 years. And this was right in our backyard, and many friends. It's harder. The emotional roller coasters that you go through in this is just devastating for not only the families, which of course it is, but just the workers, the rescue workers, recovery workers. It's the sad part of the job because we give closure to families, but either way, there's no it's a no-win scenario, and it really taxes you. But it's what we do, right? Texans helping Texans, not to be cliche, but that's what I saw. But I saw people from all over the country. So they showed up that very first day we got on the ground, established a foothold, developed a command and control, if you will, for the civilian side of the response, the volunteers. And then I called all my friends that I knew, right? I got SEALs from the West Coast and Green Berets from Fort Bragg and Marine Recon guys that are all parts of different teams. They all came together. They're fire and forget. They were in the water very quickly, helping out when the waters receded. And then we did make some rescues as well early on. That's a great thing. That's always great to grab somebody in the water and pull them out. My dog and I were down there together. We worked together as a team, and we were tethered. And thank goodness we were. We got washed into some water and wrapped around a tree and able to get out really quickly. But a lot of people did it. Some of
Oh,
the rescue workers we lost. There
really?
was a whole camp there. Yes, people that showed up. It's a very dangerous business. This is swift water rescue, but we're talking about 40 foot, 30 to 40 foot crests above normal water level. So very dangerous, very dynamic as water. It rained on us for 16 hours straight during that thing, torrential downpour. So it was extremely dangerous. The place that I showed up first was a place called Ingram, which is right there at Kerrville, and it was a Blue Oak RV site that had hundreds of people in it camped out for the 4th of July weekend, and the whole thing was gone, completely wiped off the map.
Whoa.
Many people did get out, but because of the alerting systems and whatnot, the things that they're discussing in special session right now in the Texas legislature, special session, and also a committee that's looking into a bipartisan committee, if you will, that's looking into it. Lots of finger pointing and things like that, but really from that, us civilians who showed up to those meetings at special session, it was a chance to then say, here's the after action review and here's how to improve. So that's what we did, and it's good. You can only improve in things like this, but it is the hardest part is calling the family members saying, I found your loved one. I found the shoe of, well, I didn't find, one of my team guys did, the shoe of a little girl with her name on it from Camp Mystic. We did get that issue to the family. That's hard. They did lose her, and so those kind of things are the hard part. But this is, this is the humanitarian side of it. It comes with all that things that you and I both have done as physicians. Me as an ER doc going out, on a shift and talking to somebody and saying we did everything we could. That's hard.
Yeah, I thank you so much for doing that and stepping up and doing what very few people could do. So you were truly a hero. I did not realize that people involved in the rescue effort actually perished as well. I had not heard that.
There was a fire chief, I believe, in one of the towns, a deputy that was out notifying people that got stranded in between on a piece of land and then eventually became part of the stream. Those things happen, and this is a dangerous business, and so that's why you can't bring everybody out. You really want, how can I help? And there's other ways, and we did go into that phase as we went into the later recovery phase, and then the sustainment, building the logistics lines of bringing out supplies, helping the workers so that they can continue to work, help them rotate, help them rest, refit, eat, sleep, all those things. One lady gave up 500 beds between all the Airbnbs that she paid for 500,
wow.
500 rescue workers. It's just, so there's just some great people out there, and they know that they can't do swift water rescue, but they sure did step up.
What do people need now? How can people help at this point?
Right. So now it's really we're well into the recovery phase. I think right now it would be just the monetary support for those groups that have exhausted resources. Mm-hmm. Our group, we're fine. We did well. We're the Remnant Ministry TX, TX for Texas, obviously for folks out of state. But really there was Heroes for Humanity, another group, Buck Up Ministries, BUCK Ministries. They put a lot of time and effort into this. We got to replenish their supplies for the next problem set, or the fact that there are still people on the ground that are still supporting the logistics lines of taking care of families who are now cleaning up their properties, fixing fences, just sustenance. I mean, some families, everything was washed away. The town of Sandy Creek, really up by Leander, you wouldn't think it was in the corridor of the Guadalupe, but those tributaries also flooded there, and 100 homes were swept away. And they had some loss of life there as well. So those people are all displaced right now. And so that's where people can look and see what's out there. We had been putting out daily situation reports on my X. Mm-hmm. Those were substantially needed out there, because then we could use that as a platform to talk. We didn't have handheld radios at the time with all the groups. We had them team internally, but we didn't have them with those groups. But that stuff is where people would bring me information, and then I would put it out, say, okay, this is what's going on here. These are the needs, but I don't have the list in my head anymore, because it's, I came off of that mission on Friday, and this is where we're at.
How did Texas deal with this disaster compared to other disasters that you've been involved in?
Right. So everything from Katrina, Rita, Harvey, floods in, North Carolina post the watershed effect that was there with Helene, a tsunami in Thailand. This here, 9/11, I've been all those things. The day of 9/11, I was there.
Wow.
What I see is in the natural disaster world, and what happened in the more rural area, obviously, Texas response, the citizens, the 17,000 plus citizens that showed up, robust, 100% A plus, no, without a doubt. Texans will always do that. They have a frontier spirit. William Barrett Travis talked about it, the famous Texan at the Alamo, the American character. It is alive. People of North Carolina, much the same way, but they were dispersed more into Appalachia, which is a lot harder to get to. Whereas here, most of our roads, as you know, in Texas, if they're going next to a river, there's a road, and it's easier access to those riverside areas where the roads weren't washed away. So the response was much easier, much more robust in the citizens, because they just know, like North Texas for me, Red River, a tornado hits a town, the next town comes over and helps. That's just naturally innate to that person. But when I was in Katrina and we're in downtown New Orleans, there wasn't the same town home feel. Went out to Biloxi and helped out there with that recovery, and back again into kind of that more rural mindset of neighbors helping neighbors, Texans helping Texans. So that's that's the way I categorize that. With regard to what the state is talking about, I'm not here to blast them. Most things that have a lot of bureaucracy are not going to function. In my book, I've done U.S. government stuff since 1983. Ronald Reagan was the president. Um, the government really can't do much very well quickly, except for war, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did for 20 years of my life,
Right.
39 total years. But they can do that well, and that's a sad fact, but that's just what it is. And so we can we have those entities, FEMA and all those other things. The state has Texas Department of Emergency Management, but each of those are fraught with their red tape. So
Mm-hmm.
it takes them a while. So these kind of things in the exigent circumstance, the initial phase, are required, but you have to realize that it's a dangerous time, as I said before. So that dangerous time, not everybody should go out there and do that. You do what you can see in front of you. Your neighbor needs your help. You help them, no doubt. That's just built in the character. But as far as us doing it differently, I would say there are a lot of things we can do. We kept a rolling tally, if you will, of after action items to talk about, just like we would have a morbidity and mortality conference in medical world, right? We talk about the things we did well, what didn't work. Same thing there. We talk about these things and we say, this is how we fix it, because this is what we saw didn't work. And right now, they're still politicking. I'm not a politician, even though I'm trying out for that kind of job. But I look at it as I'm not trying out for governor or trying out. I'm not running for governor. I'm running for senior public servant.
Right.
Because this, when I look at faith and truly who I am, it's the servant's heart, right? Because at the meetings, I saw some sad representations of legislators who had no heart for these citizens that were teared up and talking about finding their neighbors in their yard that had passed. And not all of them, not all the legislators. I'm talking about, I saw a few that I really was embarrassed for the state of Texas that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that I knew you were an emergency room physician, and I knew you had been in the military for, you said 30 years, right? And I did not realize that you had
39 total. Yeah.
39 total. And then I did not realize that you had been to all of these natural disasters and played a leadership
Right.
role. And so you really know how to act under fire and under pressure. Tell us what happened during COVID, because you had some pitfalls, as I did, and that's sort of what brought us together.
We did, didn't we?
Tell us what happened.
It was a culling out. Yeah. It was a culling out. I call it the wheats and tares of truth, right?
Right.
And so you found out that if you told the truth, you got slapped. And I'll give you the 40,000-foot view version. Is I'm a Green Beret, or I was. And I was in a mission in Africa when I came home to COVID. And, so I was in between jobs, military wise, and they said, hey, why don't you be the liaison to the governor's office, Governor Abbott, during COVID from the military side of the state of Texas, the Texas Military Department, and be the liaison, the guy that talks to them and then talks back to the military. How many, volunteers do we need? How many troops do we need, et cetera? So that was a perfect place for me, and that's where I belonged. However, I'm a plumber on the battlefield. I stop bleeding. That's what I do, right? I'm not really a plumber, but that was what I call it. I stopped bleeding in bad places in the world, out of a backpack, not an emergency room. And so when I'm doing that, that's a different type of thing. So I'm not an immunologist. I'm not a virologist. I took those classes in medical school, as we all did. The only thing I knew about coronavirus in 1995 when I graduated was it was the common cold. That's all I knew, right? And I'm going, coronavirus, that's the common cold. Why are we worried about this? But then as I started looking at news and things, I understand. I was in Africa. There's no TV. You don't watch anything. You just, we're fighting the Al Qaeda in the Maghreb in the sub-Saharan Africa. So anyway, I come back. I'm doing this job. I'm sitting there at the governor's task force. I'm in the state emergency operations center every day for 3 months. And I'm watching this and I'm going, no, this doesn't sound right. So I was calling emergency rooms of people that I knew and saying, what are you seeing coming in? What's going on? Because I'm looking at these databases that said this many people will die, these estimates, right? Remember the London model, they had the A&M model, we had the Stanford model of what they thought would happen. And so if we take so many days to flatten the curve and all these crazy things and mask wearing and all this stuff, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. PCR tests, nasal swabs, we do this emergency room to confirm I hardly ever used them because I knew how to treat things. I'm old school medicine, trained by my dad, who was a family doctor, did house calls, right? So I'm
Right.
like, no, we don't
There
use
was a
swabs for
time
that.
when
We
we
don't
did
use that
rely.
mass screening,
Well, yeah, and the testing. Remember,
right?
all doctors now just like will not treat without a test, and it's so weird. It's like you could have
Yeah.
common sense and your clinical judgment, doing a history and physical, and now
yeah. Well,
oh, we don't have a test that confirms this, so we're not going to do anything. It's very odd.
It's algorithmic. It's
Mhm.
algorithmic medicine. It is not the art of medicine anymore.
Right,
It's
right,
algorithmic, and it's not right. It's AI cannot run medicine. It cannot
right,
run it. Period.
right,
You
right.
cannot. There's no diagnosis. That's why it's called a differential diagnosis. You know this. I know that. But for people listening, that's the list of things something could possibly be. All right. So I'm watching that. Then watching the first couple of weeks, Texas spent $54 million of Texas taxpayer money for the COVID response on buying PPE and swabs and all these things, nasal swabs. And when I went to go greet those things, because I had to take the soldiers to go meet them, we went to San Antonio to a big convention center where they were storing this stuff. And I'm reading the boxes and I'm like, I can't read the boxes. Why not? Because they're written in Chinese. I'm like, why are we getting Chinese PCR tests? This doesn't make a lick of sense, right? This simple stuff, right? You know, I can understand the level of, you know, what we were going into, but I had to start listening to the early people that were really out there. The Peter McCulloughs, right? Right. Lee Merritt, all the docs, Cole, all those guys who I now know and are friends of mine, and listen to them and go, what are they doing? Now understand, when I would say at the operations center in that task force for the governor, if I said two words, I got in trouble. Number one, ivermectin. Number two, hydroxychloroquine.
Oh, wow.
Don't talk about that. I'm like, yeah, but I'm a austere medicine guy. Like I was just in Africa, we're giving these kind of medications to people. They don't hurt you. Like you really would have to try hard.
Was that Governor Abbott that bristled, or was it his people, his henchmen?
No, it was dishes, you know, Department of State Health Services.
Okay, right.
So right, completely inept. They couldn't work their way out of a paper bag if you poured the instructions. I mean, if water was in a boot, the instructions were on a heel. They cannot figure their way out of anything, right? So I'm like, okay, you mean to tell me that we're going to spend all this money? I'm telling you what's coming to the emergency rooms, and they're saying the only people that are dying are getting put on vents. Why are we doing that anyway? Well, they're giving them too much, you know, and expiratory pressure. Now, this is detailed stuff a lot of people don't know, but it wasn't run correctly. Right. Okay, they're blowing out their lungs. This isn't working. And I've done a lot of ventilators, and so I'm thinking, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. So then we spent a lot of money on building new bed spaces throughout the state, which were never filled. We're talking about convention centers in Dallas that they brought in FEMA beds and put them in there waiting for the people to show up. Nobody did.
Right.
Hospitals went into the mindset of, oh, we must test everybody for COVID before we see them. And if you don't, you leave AMA despite the fact you're having some other ailment, just typical normal ER visits. So all this crazy wazoo stuff for what, right? So it's not conspiracy. This is just a fact. This is fact. I'm just telling you the facts.
Right.
So they tell me, okay, we're done with you at the governor's task force because you keep talking about things that are irritating us. So go down to the border. And I'm like, all right, that's what I was waiting for because I'm an action guy. So they send me down to Operation Lone Star. Right now, this is going to tie back into COVID because we take Operation Lone Star, which is the state's response to the invasion of people coming across the border. And, you know, I had 12,000 people a week coming across that border, sometimes up to 17,000 in a 24-hour period. And so we would meet these big masses of people. Nobody was tested for anything. They're coming into the country like crazy. We're putting them on buses and sending them everywhere. And then my soldiers are being told, you got to take the shots. And I'm like, no, you don't. You're 19 years old. You're physically fit. Here's your odds. Here's my informed consent. Go to work. And they did. And if they wanted to, they could. I think out of the 3,000 informed consents I did, I asked my medic that was in charge, and she said, I think you got about 6 people that actually took it.
Wow.
Hey, that's on them.
Good for
right?
you.
That's informed consent. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. So what did you tell them? What was your informed consent?
Oh, listen, this was great. So they told me that I tested positive for COVID. I didn't, right? I didn't. I'm not even sick, but I had to come into work and they were like, everybody's getting tested. That was the only one time I got a PCR test. I'm like, okay. So they gave me 10 days off. And so I sat in my trailer and I did a PowerPoint on the border, 70 pages. And I took all the information from FDA, CDC, all this stuff. I posted it on my website. I made sure all the soldiers had first time I built my website. I said, here it is. It's all out there for you guys. Go to this website, read the informed consent, come in, I'll give you a quick brief over it. Won't do all 70 slides. And then on my very last slide, after I got angry, I put a slide of a skull and crossbone, said DNA on the forehead, and says, any questions?
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's how firm that I was after I'd seen 2 cases of myopericarditis, 1 stroke, and a 30-year-old who had to go through speech rehab. And I'm like, no, I've done Army medicine for a long time. I've only had 1 myocardial infarction, 1 MI, 1 heart attack in a senior ranking non-commissioned officer in my whole career. And now I've got 3 young people, and then it went on and on and on.
Right.
Of people that already came on vaxxed. So then,
well, hold on. Were you suspicious of the shot before you saw those people, or what? Like, where? What was
no.
So
no, my position on that was no. My position on that was I've served for a long time. Have a shot card that's this long,
right.
2 of them, 2 yellow cards filled out with things you and I had never even heard of before. Ross River flu. Where's that? Well, it's in Ross River, Australia, which is a Ross River flu. You got to take the shot. Roger that. We're soldiers. We do what we're told. And I know what happened with the anthrax. And that was a debacle. That was the previous, COVID problem. And they pulled that one. But people were still getting it. They left it in the inventory. But with this one, when they went to mandate, and then I started reading the Army regulations, that's when I went, wait a minute. You're telling me that the Army regulations show, Chapter 8, paragraphs 6, Army Regulation 40-562. I can read it in my sleep now. This is what it says. If it's an EUA, emergency use authorization, which is an experimental shot, must provide informed consent.
Right.
That's the regs. Until the day that the 2-star general came down. Now, I'm just a lieutenant colonel at the time. And so, I was a private early on in the Army. I came a long way from the beginning. I mean, I should be a 5-star general, with the amount of time I got in. But I remember that general walking in. He looks at my whiteboard, everything ready. I knew he was coming. I knew he was mad at me because nobody was taking the shots. We don't look good, Chambers. You got to give everybody the shot. Get with the program. I said, sir, I have to do informed consent. He said, now it ain't about the science, Doc. It's about the policy. Now come on, get with the program. I'm like, sir. And he liked me and I liked him. I said, sir, you cannot tell me not to do that. That's an unlawful order. Oh, he changed. He said, your career's on the line, doctor. And I said, my life was on the line downrange. I got a Purple Heart in combat. You think that I'm going to worry about my career? Right? That's exactly what I said. Now, when you play rock, paper, rank, right? Because that's what that is. They win. He's got more stars. I don't have any stars. But in the long run, post testifying in the SEALs versus DOD case, all of those things were found to be, number 1, shots, not safe, not effective, and we could do it by lesser intrusive means. What does that mean? Okay, they're not safe, not effective. Lesser intrusive means preventative medicine. I've taken care of people in the worst places in the world. There are certain things that you do to prevent disease. So we did that to my soldiers. Nobody was sick. The people that came into sick call, as I had on the board for the general, they were double vaxxed. They already came on the border that way. So I was going, okay. So I'm learning throughout all this, teaching myself, sat in my trailer, created that PowerPoint. And then that's when they told me, you're out. They put another guy in. That guy got promoted to general. He was a Ivy League graduate. He even told me on the first day I met him. And he graduated the War College first in my class, and I am an epidemiologist.
Oh my God. He told you that? He told you he was first in his class?
Of course, because with those kind of accolades come that kind of ego.
Good Lord.
So because he was taking over for me, because this is how he walks in. He goes, oh, I heard you got fired because you weren't doing your job. And I was like, no, that's not what happened. I said, I was doing my job, but let me brief you on the border because you're about to take over a real world operation. The largest deployment of soldiers on the border, 10,000 at the time, since 1812. And I said, and you're going to be the task force surgeon over everybody. And do you know how to put a tourniquet on? Oh, I don't need to put a tourniquet on. I said, you might have to put one on somebody, right? We get shot at once in a while. So he tells me that. And I said to him after he gave me his accolades, I said, hey, listen, Doc, I once killed a gopher with a stick, right? He's like, and that means the same thing down here on this border, because right now you got people 400 meters from you across Mexico, cartel guys that want you dead. Don't ever get on that border because you won't have a gun. They won't give you one, and so you're not going to be doing this anyway. The reality is that there was this I don't know. There was just like they were frosted over with not wanting to talk about anything. It was a Hegelian dialectic, if you will, where emotions ran high. I'm just talking facts. I've never issued feelings in my life, so I don't have them. So I know that when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm talking straight, and I know the facts. Sitting on the stand in Tampa in a federal court case, SEALs versus Department of Defense, and I testified, and they said, "What makes you the expert witness?" I said, "I'm not an expert witness. I'm a fact witness."
Mhm.
Right? Because these are my numbers. Where do you have these numbers? I got them right here in my head. Right? I was taking care of at the time 6,000 soldiers. They
Right.
were under my care, 6,000. And so I had PAs working in all sectors, but I was the guy ultimately responsible. And I said, these are the numbers. These are real numbers. Then I presented the Defense Medical Epidemiology Database, which
Mhm.
Dr. Teresa Long called me about. I don't use that system, but I did to corroborate what I was seeing. And
Right.
then I knew at that point, 100% knew. And then when the DOD, Department of Defense, obfuscated that information by shutting the system down and changing the numbers so it didn't look bad, look worse, but so it didn't look like there was a big shift,
Right.
then I completely confirmed everything that I was thinking, which was this is somebody's cleaning up after themselves when they made a huge mistake.
Were,
And there
were,
could be worse assumptions made, but I'm not going to go there today.
were you able to keep up with your own data or get any of that data, or was it sort of taken from you?
Well, my data was honestly, it was this simple because I was running a real world operation. It was literally just, you imagine like 4 lines and a thing coming through.
Right.
This is how many people I got for sick call. This is how many people were sick
Right.
throughout all the different regions. And so, yeah, I do have that data. But what's more important is that on the flooding the other day, 2
Mhm.
soldiers came up to me who were on that operation and said, "Hey, sir, thank you for standing up for us."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No,
It's the sons and daughters of Texas.
and then they booted you
Yeah,
out of there and they put in you said he's an epidemiologist, is that right?
yeah, yeah.
Does he
He had
treat?
a secondary. I think his primary was like pediatrics, and his secondary was epidemiology. So you got
Oh,
a pediatrician
a
on the border taking
pediatrician.
care of
Oh
troops.
my Lord.
Yeah, right, right. It was pretty sad,
Unbelievable.
but he was a yes man. He was just like, yeah, okay, I'll give all the shots. And so he did, and they increased the rate from less than 1% on the border to 17%
Wow.
of vaccination rate.
Is that PowerPoint on your website? Is it still there?
It is. It's on Doc Pete Chambers. Yeah, it's on docpetechambers.com.
Okay.
It's there.
I'm
And
definitely gonna dig that
that's
up.
oh yeah, it was. You could see how I was thinking at the time because I didn't know, and there were some things on there that now are wrong, but I left it up there just because it is posterity. I mean, this is what I was thinking in the midst of a battle, going, what am I up against? But
Right.
it's
Well,
really kind of neat to look back and think, okay, this is what I was thinking there.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
to be honest, very few people got it completely right from the start, but
Fair.
it is very telling. I love to go back on X and see where certain politicians stood in 2021. And it's a pretty strong litmus test. Like, do you at least have some common sense? And so, Governor of Texas, which I hope will be calling you soon. What prompted you to make this big move?
Right. Yeah, that was not in the tea leaves for me. I was asked one time to run for a district as a congressman, a U.S. congressman, by the Speaker of the House himself. He said, "I've got all the money in the world. We can promote you." While I was in D.C., and I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not running for Congress. I'm not a politician."
Right.
And so I did. And a friend of mine took it, and now he's a senator, up in Oklahoma.
Mhm.
And so I said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I might run for sheriff or something executive one day." Right. I won't be a legislator because I probably would throat punch somebody that, if they didn't go common sense. Right.
I can relate to that feeling. Yes. Like,
yeah, not literally, but figuratively throat punch, like just,
right.
be quiet. But what I do is because I was put in leadership positions my whole life as a soldier, I would lead something. Never knowing that someday somebody would come to me up in Bonham, Texas. A group of people would ambush me and say, these are all people of various denominations of faith and whatnot. They were meeting on a Pentecost, the day of Pentecost. They were having a barbecue, and I said, "Sure, I'll come up," not knowing that there was an ambush about to take place. And the ambush was at a campfire that evening and said, "We really want you to consider running for the governor of Texas." Do you realize what you're talking about? Like the $100 million war chest guy. We're talking about the 30-year politician, Greg Abbott, judge and this and that and AG and governor 12 years. No, it's not going to happen. I'll pray about it. That's what I said. I'll pray about it. I did. I said, I'll take a week and I'll get back to you, because they did convince me that it was at least worth looking at. Mm-hmm. And then the very next day, leaving there, I was on my way to go do a counter human trafficking deal in Mississippi. Driving down the road, I get a call from Todd Callender. He's an attorney, one of the Freedom Side attorneys, great guy. Worked with him a lot on Roberts v. Austin as well, another case in Denver. But anyway, he says, your name came across, was down in Mar-a-Lago, and your name came across the table as possibly somebody that could run for governor of Texas. And, some other people were there that are notable, and I'll keep their names off of here. He said, are you considering? I said, oh, you talked to the folks from the barbecue the other night. Nice move. He goes, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, that might be a sign, but man, I'm going to keep going. So it took me about a week. And then finally at the end, I was like, okay, Lord, just tell me reason why I shouldn't. And it didn't come. And so I said, okay, now I will conduct a feasibility study, and I'll say, can we feasibly do this? And it wasn't until another person that's very well known in DC hit me up, and I can't say the name. I just understand it. Everybody knows, household name. And he says, I think you got a chance. If the grassroots in Texas will stand up, if the military people alone, you win the primary. Just the military people alone, the retirees.
Right.
Because we need a leader, and they're looking for that. We need that. And status quo isn't working anymore. Higher property taxes aren't working anymore. All these things that people want, but we're going into a different phase. There's a different phase in this country of truth, transparency, action. I'm seeing it. We're on the cusp of it. But here's the thing that I do know about Texas. It is the domino of the flyover states.
Right.
As Texas goes, so does the breadbasket of the United States.
Right.
And people say to me, well, Greg Abbott's not that bad. I don't think he's that bad. But I don't think, matter of fact, I know that status quo, and I say that, I'm being careful not to sling mud here. I don't think he's that bad in the optics of things.
Right.
Okay, but there's a reality. And because I worked for him during COVID, and I worked for him on Operation Lone Star, which is the Texas response to the invasion on the border, and I know how many terrorists are in this country, and I know where they're at, and I know what's being done and what's not being done. I have no problem with the Trump administration coming in and putting tourniquets on the wound of this country when it comes to immigration. He has done that, but we've got a thousand tiny cuts, right? We've got a moral injury to this nation. Many people are disenfranchised. They don't believe that elections are worth voting in, and that's what we've got to bring back, is that truth and transparency and all that. I know that sounds political. I'm not. I'm not a politician. Far from it. But that's what made me do it. So then now I've jumped out of the plane, so to speak, in the paratrooper world, and there's no going back in. So we're going to go as hard as we can, and we are as efficient as possible. Very little. We've had donations and things. That's what this thing floats on, but we are efficient, and people's not tax money. Their donations are not going to waste.
What is your sense of people's, based on COVID and the military, like how are people still upset, and especially in the military, are they upset over how Abbott handled the pandemic?
Completely. In the state of Texas, absolutely. Here's specifically why. And I won't say it my firsthand information from the COVID response, because he took his playbook from what Department of State Health Services said to do. They advised him. Right. And so that was, we know now, a big mistake, right? Pete Hegseth himself, the Secretary of Defense, came out and said that was an unlawful order to mandate those things. Greg Abbott jumped right on it, right? And his commander-in-chief, who was fired subsequent to the SEALs case, she was let go. She was allowed to retire, but essentially she would have been fired if she didn't. The two-star general, she gave the order to us to recuse ourselves from informed consents, and it was in writing. And when you do that, you set yourself up to be an exhibit in a court case. And when you do that, it's embarrassing to the Department of Defense, to the governor. And so, but he's still ultimately responsible, because he could have done what Governor Stitt did in Oklahoma and said, No, our National Guard is not going to take it. See,
Mhm.
he didn't follow that lead. He
Right.
followed DeSantis when it's uh, uh, helpful in a campaign or political uh, point or of argument, but he will not take the lead when it comes to what the right thing is, and listening to the right people, because that's really what a good leader will tell you. I don't know what I don't know, right? And that's me. There are a lot of things that I don't know about bonds, school bonds, right? But I can get smart on it really quick. But I'm a firm believer that citizens can help a governor, and it is in their purview to set up task forces to look into these things, not of lobbyists, right? Not of lobbyists, not of legislators, of real people that do the real job.
What do you think can be done in Texas to repair the harms from the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a trust thing right there, because you and I both know that you've got to trust your provider. You
Mm,
have to trust your provider. I see a lot of people now saying this, and you're seeing this too. I will never go to a doctor again
exactly. Yeah.
unless I've got to go to the emergency room in a car wreck.
Well, no,
And
yeah,
it
people,
is
yeah,
exactly. And
won't
I'm
go to the
talking to
hospital.
somebody today. Yeah, won't go to the hospital. Right. Yeah, hospital. But I'm talking to somebody today that's one of your patients from Houston, and just sidebar conversation. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I know her. She's my doctor." And I was really, she was the only one I could talk to that would listen to me during COVID. Right. This is, you and I've heard these things because we were there. Right. And we saw our colleagues. My cousin, I hate to even say this, my cousin is an infectious disease guy. He was average every day, internal medicine infectious disease guy. He bought $1 million house after this was all over, and doesn't talk to me anymore because we had discussions about what remdesivir did, what the ventilators did, what the constant testing did, and then the shots. Of course, it's a standalone. I came out early and said, I don't care who came out the earliest. It's not my thing. But understanding in military medicine world, right, vectors of attack, it's a bioweapon.
Right.
It's a gain of function bioweapon. It doesn't. Was that the intent? I don't know. But I mean, you could take an ice pick and turn it into a weapon of war. Is that the intent? No, but it became one.
Right.
So that's what happened here. It is that. And so we saw it for what it was and why. It's critical thinking. It's not just the yes man. And so how do we fix that? I think the key word is to look into, in the task force, is decentralized medicine. I
Mhm.
think that is the key. And there are many subsets of that. And that's what, people smarter in the room on doing that in their particular fields will discuss that. More regulations not needed, less regulations needed, more art of medicine, more interpersonal communication. AI is a tool, but not complete reliance on to diagnose. No,
Yeah.
no, not even close. Um, yeah.
Well, and you've mentioned maybe trying to get Fauci indicted.
Yep.
Tell us about that? How do
Yeah,
you
that was
that's
yeah,
going?
that was Ivan Ranklin's fault. You know, we were down in West Palm Beach, and I was speaking at a freedom conference, and it had to do a lot with COVID. And he brought me up on the stage. He said, "What would you do if you were the governor of Texas? If we are talking about crimes against humanity?"
Mhm.
My thing is Nuremberg 2.0 is not out of the question.
Right.
And so there is still a Nuremberg code, and there are still the things that we adhere to. A lot of people talk about the Hippocratic Oath. It's so much more than that. This is about just legal, moral, ethical ideals with your faith. People of faith will understand this completely. Is that treat others as you want to be treated yourself, right? And so I wouldn't do this to someone if I knew that it was bad, and I'm going to still do it anyway.
Right.
So how do I do that as a governor to say, well, if somebody committed a crime, and there are three main elements of a crime. So I was also a reserve sheriff deputy for a while, and then so I understood that when I had to develop a case on someone, I had to have somebody that was hurt, right? The one that was the crime was committed upon. I have to have the perpetrator or alleged perpetrator in this case, and then I have to have the intent, and
Mhm.
that's what you find out in court, right? And that's where we look. So if we can't bring someone to justice, although they are innocent until proven guilty, if we can't bring them to justice, but if there are people that died or people that were debilitated, we must look at that as that would fall under a felony category.
Mhm.
Then that requires an extradition to the state of Texas to stand trial, and then to see If you're innocent, you don't have to prove you're innocent. You just have to remain it. But if you can't prove your intent was pure, that's up to you. And if that's the case, then you'll stand trial in Texas. And it's not just Fauci. That was just the name that came to mind as I even asked the question. But for me, it's there are many more on that list, because you don't just get the conspirator, you get the co-conspirator, or the person that was also involved in the crime. You can hide a crime. These are in the faith world called a sin of omission and commission. Did you commit it, or did you aid and abet? I don't know. That's what we would have to find out. And then who then benefited from it? When I say I want, I want healthcare to come over financial gain for insurance companies or for big hospital corporations. Yeah, those people have a lot of money and a lot of lobbies. And when they hear that a guy like me is talking about running for governor, they're scared, right? And so there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to do some dirty pull. And I got it. And I am fully willing to take the hits. I've been shot at, I carry some metal around with me. So I have no problem taking the shots. But that's what we're up against. So that's not an easy thing to say without thinking there wouldn't be a second and third order effect back upon me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think people need to realize that, or remember, the mandates started in Texas, and they started 5 months before Biden, Houston Methodist Hospital. That's right. That's how I became infamous, because I stepped on their toes. And I believe it was done very purposefully. I believe they started the mandates in Texas. They knew if they could get away with them in Texas, they could get away with them anywhere. And I feel like our state has been taken over by this mafia of hospitals. I mean, I'm in the Texas Medical Center right outside of it, and it's the largest medical center in the world. And I think it is changing the politics of our state, because when you look at jobs, it's healthcare for Texas. And it brings in people from all over the country, all over the world, and dilute our values. So I'm just so excited that we have you running, because I feel like, the heart of the beast is this medical complex, and people don't realize it. They think of everything. They think of oil and gas. And I would like you to talk about AI, though, because aren't we building some massive AI center in Texas? And can you tell us about that? And do you have concerns?
Absolutely. Great question. Yeah. So in Abilene right now, there's one that uses, a few million gallons a day, which would be able to take care of about 10,000 people size town. But they're talking about it pumping up to eventually all the data centers in Texas, water, right, to cool the servers. That's what it's for. And people don't think of that industry as a requirement of water's a requirement, but it is, especially in places like Abilene, where they're typically in a drought. They don't get 14 inches in a year. Right. And so when you see a place like that, and then you see what it's doing, it's then turns water, which is a commodity. It's kind of weird to be talking about on the tail end of a flood, but that's that flood, that water's gone. It's not the kind that you want to absorb into the ground like the typical rains. Right. So 400 billion gallons in a year, if we get all the data centers in here plus, which the argument then is, well, we're going to, the corporations that are bringing it in for AI data centers, say it's Microsoft, I believe is the one that we're talking about, that we will then have a net positive water gain. Well, how is that? This is now how they're trying to sell it. But they're not telling the local municipalities, oh, by the way, you're getting this. This has been lobbied in, at the governor's level with, backdoor meetings and things. And so when you bring in industry from outside, that's a good thing. But when the second and third order effect is an ultimate net loss for the citizens who have to watch how much water they use and put meters on, and then that's more government control and really not very safe thinking, because that water evaporates. It's not, you can't net gain it back. So they look at other ways to bring in desalination plants and things. They're thinking that that's going to be the answer, but I'm sorry, you can't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining in Texas and make me feel real comfortable about it.
Right. And what about the cloud seeding? I mean, do you think that's is that really an issue, an important issue? And do you think it had anything to do with the horrible floods in the Guadalupe River?
Yeah, good, great two questions. And these are the things that people call, if I don't answer the question, it's called fence sitting. But let me tell you another Texasism. Fences in Texas are made of barbed wire. We don't sit on them, right?
Right.
So here's the deal. Cloud seeding. It is a thing. It's been a thing since the 50s. They cloud seeded 2 days before Camp Mystic and all the way down. It's not just Camp Mystic, the whole Guadalupe corridor, hundreds of miles as it snakes through. So yeah, that was a thing. And did it add to this? I don't know, but it does require somebody to look into it. If there's a loss of life and there was that much, I mean, this is historic proportions. Number one flood in the region, although the last flood was in '87, that was pretty significant. Rivers flood, that happens. But is it a requirement to do that 2 days before when you admit to, the state admits to, we knew there was a front coming in. Okay, so that means somebody didn't check with the company they gave the license to cloud seed 2 days before. It's out there. This is real information. I'm not making this up. Right. And I got a post. I put a post out the first night that we found our first body in the water, and there was a family member, and he asked me. He said, "Why did they come out here in cloud seed?" I know that they did because I'm part of the whatever Upper Guadalupe River Authority. Why were they doing that? And I said, I don't know, but I'll look into it. Right, because I'm not the cloud seeding expert, but I'll find out. Now, I'm not the governor either, but I'm going to have to act like it right now. And so I put it out on X, and it got 2.2 million views in 24 hours. And it wasn't about the clicks. It was about the concern that it brought up, and it forced is a forcing function for discourse, right? Not dialectic, discourse. And that's a good thing, right? We should have that. That should be a task force. We should look at that because there are so many things that happen in that world. 5G, electromagnetic frequency. I'm an expert in directed energy weapons. I've been hit by one from bad guys. I mean, I know what that does, and we've used them for different things for crowd control. It's real technology. The Havana syndrome is real. All these things are real. It's if we don't have a true debate about it, then you can use the argument. Well, your clouds. It's every condensation trail on plane becomes a chemtrail. So we don't want that either. Right, I don't want sky is falling. What I want is true discussion. Look into it, because if it's going to be a vector that's going to hurt the people in my state, it'll stop.
Yeah. Well, what else? What do you think is the top problem in Texas that needs to be solved?
Well, that answer is really a four-part answer, and I'll go real quick. If you're from the business industry, the energy sector, the medical sector, or just the population in general, there's a different answer. So most people that don't really pay attention to politics, it's property taxes. In the last 12 years, since the governor's been in there, from where it was, it's gone up 26%, property taxes alone. Wow. Last 12 years. It hasn't gone down. They're talking about it in special session. They won't do it. Listen to Brian Harrison. He's a state rep. I don't know him personally, but I follow him. He's doing the best he can in there alone. He's kind of the Massey of the Texas politics scene. And then you look at other people that are out there. So then in the business sector, of course, you're looking at we want to bring in more technology, but not the kind that's taking away our jobs, because I want to have like normal humans come in and work for me. I don't want to see that happen. Well, how do we do that with a state education system that's, albeit we're number 8 in the world on economies, if we were a country, number 8, we're number 27 in education. Then how do we sustain that number 8 without bringing people from other countries, right? So if I'm that person, I'm concerned about business and just people that I can hire, but I've got to bring in people from other countries because we've dumbed down our system so much that we can't graduate kids that can conduct basic mathematics and the sciences and all those basic things. Even pushing vocational schools, that's a huge thing because there's a lot of ability to do that. So the answers there is for them. For ranchers, a lot of beef coming across from cattle from Mexico. There's a screwworm disease problem down on the border, and there's TB. There's resistant TB coming across in cattle. So those kind of things concern the Texas and Oklahoma Cattlemen's Association. That's a big thing, right? For them, that's their thing. With regard to drill, baby drills, Trump said it on the floor. I was there when he said it in the rotunda because they moved it indoors. We want to drill, baby drill, but we've got to get our refineries back up online. We got to get our energy stuff right because we're kind of offset a little bit. So we get another snowmageddon and we can't provide energy to the state of Texas and everything shuts down again. It takes 6 years, a year, 2 years to 6 years to restart a refinery if it goes down, right? That's a scary thing. So we can't be energy independent again. So everybody's got their thing. But if across the board, if you just cut the taxes and allow people to operate, and then fiscally bring in somebody that will truly Texas Doge. You know, look at the expenditures of what's gone out, and does it fall under a category of fraud, waste, or abuse? Well, let's fix it. Then we can drop. We got a $26 billion extra funding out there for emergency response since Harvey. They haven't spent that money yet. Yet they still haven't done all the things that they could do with regard to what happened during Harvey. So we've got a new one now, right? Just right behind me here. So we've got a new one we've got to look at. So all those things, we can run smarter. We don't have to work harder.
Right. And then when is the primary?
Yeah, that's key. The primary is primary, because if I don't make it past that, then we'll just try again next go around. But the 3rd of March, the 2nd of March is Texas Independence Day. So think of this. This is not a catchphrase, just came to my mind. That's Texas Liberation Day, because if we can make it through that, we win. We beat a Democrat all day long.
All right.
But we've got to get it. We've got to get past that. And there's a lot of games that are going on. They possibly are going to scrub the rolls of registered voters right before. They've already said it's going to be a closed primary. So people that are in the middle of the bell curve of thinkers can't come to the right if they want to vote for a Republican. They've already done that. They don't typically, they have open rolls for voting. So that's already been done. We know that we got them on their heels. They're sitting back on their spurs wondering, what do we do now with this guy? He tells too much truth.
Right.
I don't know.
And then your website is docchambers.com. Is that right?
No, that's Doc Pete Chambers. That's the one with the informed consent. Okay. No, this one's docpetechambers.org for governor. If you look up Doc Pete Chambers, you'll see it there. And it's on my X. That's the best place to go. And you can just pull it up off of there.
Okay. Well, this is very exciting. I'm thrilled that you could come on last minute. And I know you've been super busy, so I appreciate it. And all the best to you. And we'll keep everybody posted on how your campaign's going. Thank you so much.
Hey, we're gonna need your help on that task force, because we need the smartest, the brightest, and those people that have proven their mettle, and that's what you've done. So I do appreciate that.
Well, thank you.